G'day, this is an old LRP sword that I made many years ago. As my LRP weapons go, it's actually one of the more modern ones. This was probably made in about 1995, 96. It's been damaged in storage and it's too dangerous to repair because the fiberglass core comes to here. You can actually feel it there. So there's no way to repair this weapon without replacing the blade entirely. So I'm going to use this bit of time capsule and cut it apart. Let's see how we used to make swords back in the Shadow League days. So you can see it's basically covered in tape. On this side you can see there is silver cloth tape along the flat edge, so the non-striking edge, and the striking edge is just duct tape, not duct tape as some people on the internet seem to be keen to call it. What I might do is just start at the core. You can see the core goes to about here, so if I put a cut through here, I've just hit the top of the core there. So I'll just saw this off. So that's the tip there. So there's no core in that at all. So if we have a look here, that is the inside of an old LRPing sword. Now that core realistically should be a little further back. This weapon was a bit not fantastic back in the day. It's a bit hard on the striking edge. But you can see there, it's basically just 3 layers of this sort of bubblegum camping foam, and then it's just been shaped down to the core. Now that's a fiberglass rod. I think this one's got 8mm fiberglass in it, and it's just been taped on the end for safety. So that way if the core did punch through, which very rarely actually happened, it still had a bit of padding on it. Now what we used to do was actually wrap a bit of inner tube around the end. So I'm just going to cut this open. I'm being a bit careful just because the core is made of fiberglass, so I don't really want to end up with fiberglass shards anyway. So it is about 8mm. Actually that might even be 10mm. So fiberglass rod, and then around the end we've basically just taped some rubber from an inner tube, just with some cloth tape and some electrical tape. So I'm just going to slice this all the way down. It's going to be a bit hard down the bottom there. So there you go. You can see again what we used to do is basically just make our foam 3 layers. The middle layer would cut the gap for the core into, so however wide the core was. And so when you constructed the weapon, the core would just sit inside that gap in the middle, then a layer on this side, a layer on this side, and then basically we took a belt sander and just sanded the edges to make the points, and you just make sure the edge wasn't too pointy. 2 reasons: 1, because it makes them hit harder, and 2, because it makes them weaker as well. The glue, we used to use gel grip, or quick grip, which is still a glue around today. Still works really well for gluing camping mat foam. And that's all these were, is just camping mats. This particular camping mat, this sort of, pull that around, this sort of marbled or bubblegum sort of finished stuff, tended to be a lot thicker than other camping mats. So back in the day we used to, if we found some cheap somewhere, if someone had them on sale, we just buy up a whole heap of them. Those crappy blue camping mats that you get these days are generally terrible for this kind of work. They're just way too thin. There we go. Blade of my sword. It's seen better days. There you can see my beautiful, beautiful Chinese markings. To the bin. So we end up with fiberglass core. There's our handle. Just padded. Can't actually remember how I made the handle on this. I was thinking this morning about, because I made a few hammers a couple of weeks back, some throwing hammers, and the handles on them were pretty crap. And I was remembering back in the day that I don't think we made the handles the way that I did the handles on those. Now admittedly I was pretty pressed for time when I did those as well. So I'm just going to see if I can strip the cloth tape off this hilt without doing too much damage to it, just to have a look and see how it was actually constructed. There's quite a bit of cloth tape on here. Alright, so I think I've gotten through the tape without going too deep into the foam there. Now I think what we used to do is actually spiral, like make strips of foam and then spiral it. But I really don't remember. Oh, this is going to take up too much of the foam, I think. The cloth tape's just pulling it up. See if maybe we can get a bit in the middle somewhere. Now these days, of course, in pre-LRP weapons, you're seeing a lot more latex coatings. So foam and latex rather than foam and tape. Over in the States, of course, where they're all a bunch of pussies, they cover everything in cloth and just make round stuff that looks terrible. Alright, so pulling this apart, I can see there is definitely a strip there. So I'd say this is probably circular. I'm just going to cut it deep. See if we can figure out what it is by pulling it off. This is actually really hard to get off. See, the blade pulled off really easily, but the hilt is not playing nice. That's what I wanted to see. So there you go. It is wrapped in a spiral, which gives you a much more even grip than the ones I made the other day where I just wrapped foam around. And there you can see where I've cut through it. Yeah, so a nice spiral. So there you have it. How we used to make weapons back in the day. I still think it's a pretty viable technique. Doesn't really hold up against some of the sort of injected, like the Kalamazoo weapons these days, which are a lot stronger. But it's quick, it's fairly cheap. So I made some throwing hammers a few weeks ago, and to make the 6 hammers that I made, I think the materials, we've got some off-cut foam, and I used some children's toy golf clubs for the handles. I think in total the hammers were probably $2-3 each with the tape and material and like glue and all that sort of stuff as well. I still reckon you could probably do a sword these days. I don't know about the fiberglass core. I guess that's probably a lot more expensive than it was back when we used to make these things. But if you could find decent camping mat foam, I'm still thinking you'd probably make a sword for about $30 probably, a decent one. If you can find reasonable camping mat, which is a bit harder to find than it used to be. So, deconstructing, bit of a time capsule. Hope you enjoyed my random delving into history. See you next time.